welcome to today's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where we're going to have a look at Friday's puzzle on the 3rd of November. It's the eve of the Times Crossword Championship tomorrow, so a big day, and this was a disappointing puzzle for me in terms of preparation for that, because I found it very hard. You can see even as I make progress in the puzzle, it was felt very stilted. It was very bitty, it didn't flow at all. I think credit to the setter, actually. There was a lot of clever wordplay and some quite nice misleading definitions too. Everything you'd want from a Times crossword, just not what you'd want when you're hoping you're going to go at grease lightning pace. So let's have a look. I mean, I managed to get Treasure Island out relatively, although that's a minute in, so I was about to say relatively well, but it wasn't really, and it gave me a load of checking letters that I singularly failed to use. I think I'd finally get 10 across here, so that was a very easy clue. Satisfied about pattern of stress. So satisfied met about RE, and a pattern of stress is a meter, as in something you'd see in poetry. And pick up one across. Run across is very clever because you can see the odd bits of bark giving you a B and an R, but the words in desolation at the end of the clue made me convinced that actually that was part of the wordplay, because that seems like it's an instruction. So I read the clue as being a 10-letter word that meant to pick up, and then a short word for wood, or a type of wood, probably 3 letters long, I thought, followed by a B and an R, and put that all in a word that meant desolation. Unfortunately, it wasn't that. It was heartbreak in the end. And pickup was just here, and then teak around the outside of the B and the R, so and heartbreak being desolation. So very clever clue, and far too good for me. 19 across. Whenever I see something like ring dispatcher in a Times crossword, I am instantly convinced it's going to be some reference to Wagner that I don't quite know. I was even more convinced once I read or thought endless love was undoubtedly 0 without the end of it. So that seems totally reasonable, especially I've got the R from elderberry in the grid. And this just looks like a German word, I don't know. So I think I leave it and come back to it. And I'm also sort of doubly scuppered because I solved jute and haiku, and that's such an odd sort of conflagration of letters that I'm convinced this is now a pangram, and the setter's tried to include every letter of the alphabet in the puzzle. So I'm thinking, right, be on alert, because there's definitely going to be an X and a Q, which turns out to be nonsense, not least because the Z is wrong in what turns out to be matador, I think. So it's a lovely clue. It's just ring dispatcher, a matador in the sort of bullfighting sense, and tangle mat followed by adore without its E. So that got me. I want to just talk about single currency as well, because I thought this was a brilliant clue. So multinational payment arrangement is the definition there, and then you've got ENC being an abbreviation for enclosed. In one-way single, so a single ticket is a one-way ticket, and then fare from Asia is curry, so you put the enc in the curry and you get currency, you put the single at the start, single currency. Lovely clue, and the use of one-way fare from Asia to define currency, I've not, well, not to define currency, but with the enc in the middle of it, I think is really good, really nice. You see another odd abbreviation here in 23 across. I don't think I've ever seen CONC used as an abbreviation for concentrated in a Times crossword before. So the way this breaks down, I think, is nettle is rile, E is a drug, so that's relatively common. We often see E, which is an abbreviation for ecstasy, obviously, and then conc for concentrated. I've not seen that before. And I was also misled by 21 down, because I was convinced when I read this that the position the hospitals got in NHS was, well, it was a central position, or it was a position between an N and an S, because you know, H is obviously abbreviation for hospital. And it turns out it's not that at all. It's H for hospital in NICE, which is the I forget what it stands for, but it's basically what advises the NHS on drugs and whether they can approve them and things. So yeah, I was very misled by that one. That didn't help with the speed of the solve. You can see, or you know, if you look at the grid, it's not being solved in a consistent way. You know, there's answers here and there, but there's no corners filled in, and that's always a bad sign. So I'm hoping tomorrow that it'll be rather smoother, although I'm fairly convinced that however smooth it is, Mark Goodliff will win. So more than one mouthful of mushrooms. Again, mushrooms, we've talked before about the importance of short synonyms in crosswords, and one of the SEPs, when I see mushrooms in a clue, especially in the middle of a clue, I'm always thinking SEPs, because that's a nice short synonym for, being the name of some mushrooms. I guess fungi is also possible, but that's, that's another letter. I didn't really think about morals until much later, and I suppose that's also because seconds can be, it can be S as it was here, but it could also be SS or even MOS for moments. I think I've seen that before, so it didn't occur to me I should be looking for a 6-letter word for mushrooms, which was silly really. I mean, 14 across, I don't think that was the first time I looked at it. That was much more straightforward. That's a clue that I think everybody starting out on the Times crossword would have a fair chance to solve. And for an experienced solver, it's almost a write-in, because when you see Soviet Union's capitals at the end of the clue, you can automatically, or very nearly automatically, just assume that can't be part of the definition. Soviet Union's capitals looks like it's hinting at SU, and that was the case here. So you've got when, as, communist, red, all around the SU for a word meaning confident, being assured. Now, what else should we talk about here? Well, let's just have a quick word about 5 down. Now, I think I'm going to put P in. Yep, there it goes. And that's reasonable, because you read the clue, support for upper body, member in seat. Well, we've talked before about the abbreviations for member, but Member of Parliament is the most common thing you'll see, so MP, and it looks like that's wordplay, member in seat, so it looks like I need to find a 5-letter word for seat, put it around the MP, and Bob's your uncle. Whereas actually, I think this is a cryptic definition clue in the end, and it turns out that it's just, it's a sentence that seems to be very much referring to a parliamentary situation, whereas it can also be read as a sentence that is hinting at an armrest, being support for an upper body member. Well, members are arms and legs, especially in crosswords, and that's what I think that's getting at there. So I found that one tricky too. Overall, what was I, about 17 minutes, which is slow, but if you look at the times that everyone else has recorded, it's not that bad. I think some of them, people with a real chance tomorrow were 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes. So I'm not totally unhappy with that, although I appreciate it wasn't a great solve. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the run through. Wish me luck tomorrow. I'll try and do a video on the killer Sudoku if I get time. Yeah, we'll see you again next time on Cracking the